Hey, everybody, we're so excited for today. This is going to be a real adventure, and Dr. Eager is thrilled to be here with you. Hey, everybody, we are so excited to have you here. This is going to be a wonderful day, and Edie is thrilled to be a part of this and to bring all of her wisdom to you. Hey, everybody, we are so
Hi, Stephanie. You're on mute. That's okay. You want to unmute yourself so you can make sure your audio works? Oh, hi, Stephanie. You're on mute. That's okay. Hi, hey Jordan, can you make
You want to
Stephanie a
unmute yourself so
co-host
you
so
can
she can unmute
make sure
herself?
your audio works?
Sorry, you're hearing
Hi,
me.
Stephanie.
Hey,
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
yeah, can hear you.
Hold on. I'll hear you in a second.
Jordan, can you make Stephanie a co-host
You're
when you
on
have?
mute. That's okay. All right. Hello.
Hi,
hello.
hey Jordan, can you make
You want to
Stephanie a
unmute yourself
co-host
so you
so
can
she can
Stephanie,
unmute
make sure
herself?
your audio works?
Sorry, you're hearing
Hi,
me.
Stephanie.
Hey,
Hi,
Hey
guys.
Jordan, you also need to go mute the live stream
can hear you.
on YouTube. That's what the reverb is. And if you make Stephanie a co-host, then she can mute herself and unmute herself. Oh, hi.
Hey,
I should have shaved.
oh,
I think
great.
I'll stay like this guy. Like I think this is all going to work great.
So I think if we're streaming now, let me change my title here.
We're streaming now, but nobody can see the stream, but they'll be able to see this conversation.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah. Eventually, if they rewind.
Change the name on this. So, yeah. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. And what an exciting day to talk about freedom. And I will be joined with Edie in just a moment. Edie likes to have a little pee break before she starts these kinds of things, and we have to honor that, of course. So I am grateful for you to be here. It is a true privilege to be able to share with you Edie's wisdom. I have the honor of being the grandson of Edie, and I carry the torch, which I love to share with so many of you. Quick note for all of you on Zoom, can you say hello? And also just please put yourself on mute, as otherwise we might get little bits and pieces of things coming in from the outside. But please share in the chat where you're coming in from, and if there's anything that's on your mind at this very moment. So that would be wonderful to start building that, building those little relationships again. And there's, of course, many of you who I recognize and who have been with us in the past. And I'm so grateful to have you here today with us. I wanted to start with one of my favorite quotes from Edie, and freedom is the nature of these calls that we're going to share together. And Edie has given us so much wisdom about freedom. This is one of my favorite quotes. Freedom lies in learning to embrace what happened. Freedom means we master the courage, sorry. Freedom means we muster the courage to dismantle the prison brick by brick. So this idea of what it is to be in a prison, what it is to release yourself from a prison. And on the other side of that prison is freedom. So I encourage you, as we dip into these 3 days, to really imagine what freedom looks like for you. What would the world look like for you if all you saw was the freedom and the possibilities rather than the prisons? Okay, here comes Edie.
Hello.
Oh, come on down.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Do you want your feet up or are you good?
It's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. And here we are, Edie. Here's all of these wonderful people who are joining us. And
Great.
there's thousands of other people joining us on YouTube. So this is a very, very special day. We have a football stadium all here to see you, which is amazing, in your living room.
Really.
Today, we're talking about freedom, about what it is to find freedom and some of the challenges that exist to discover freedom. Edie, you started in your life as a young girl, free, as a ballerina, and at 16, you discovered a whole different world and were taken to Auschwitz. And by the end of your 16th year, you had almost died and living in the most notorious prison maybe in the history of humanity. But what we know from your story is that you never let that prison take over. You kept freedom alive for you that whole time. And we're gonna in this time together, we're gonna talk about what it takes to be free, even when you're in a prison, and that for many others, they might be free but actually living in a prison. So, Edie, before we go to you, I want to quickly introduce a few of the other people who are going to be with us on this call. Stephanie Harrison is a friend of ours and also a very talented writer. And she and Edie share a lot of philosophies, and they also share being terrific writers. Stephanie wrote a book called The New Happy, and it is a redefinition of what happiness is. And it is a beautiful, beautiful book. It is just becoming available, and we got the opportunity to read an early manuscript, and it is a terrific book. And it really is in line with what Edie's belief is about happiness, which is we don't just look for happiness, do we? We try to find purpose.
Purpose and meaning in our existence, yes. And I feel very fortunate to be with you today because it can change your whole life, that you give birth to the real you, your authentic uh, self, because we give it up very, very quickly. We become a daughter, we become a wife, we become, of course, the mother. And I today would like to be your midwife. And so you can give yourself every morning a hello to that little girl who is crying for a very healthy, very, very dedicated mommy, and that's you. So I hope today is a very, very good day. It's a beginning of your midlife. And when I was about 40, I was told by my supervisor to get my PhD. And I told him by the time I get it, I'll be in my 50s. And he replied, "You'll be 50 anyway." And that's what I'm telling you. You're going to be 50 anyway. And be sure that you recognize that there'll never be another you. Nobody ever can replace you if you leave this room. And I think it's wonderful for me to be your midwife, so to speak. And hopefully you're going to go home and do something differently. Maybe take the side door or God knows what, but um, instead of revolving, you're evolving. And I think that is very wonderful for you to call me not a shrink, but a stretch. And are you going to stretch your comfort zone and you're going to do something differently? And I think different doesn't mean better, just depend, depend on how you can really truly um, find that little girl in you who is really crying for a good, good, good mommy. And that's you, to be a good mommy to yourself. I hope that you can do that. And every day is really just going to add up in one day. The morning sunshine may not come back the way it has been. So I am very, very lucky to be with you and give you the idea of how to be the best mom to you, because there'll never, ever be another you.
Edie, thank you. And your wisdom is for the ages. There is never a moment Edie doesn't give you something that you needed to hear. And so to me, that idea of being that mommy to ourselves, that parent to ourselves and nurturing ourselves and taking care of ourselves is so key to freedom. I'm going to get into some ideas around how we can start becoming that mother to ourselves. But before we do that, I wanted to ask Stephanie a question. Stephanie, when you wrote your book, hold on a second. Guys, is everyone having a hard time hearing us? Is that what I'm gathering? Okay, 1 second. Let me see. Let me go into a Zoom setting and see if I can turn it up here. Let's see. Let's see. Well, I'll try to talk louder. If I talk louder, does that help us a little bit? Yeah? Okay. So one of the things that Stephanie has done is she wrote her book. And I know many of you have thought about writing a book, and maybe you have a story to tell and you haven't yet discovered how to tell that story. Stephanie, when you began the process of writing your book, of discovering what your story was there any fears that you had to overcome about putting pen to paper?
So many fears, countless fears about getting it wrong or being judged, feeling as though I was putting my most vulnerable self out there. But it was through reading Edie's work and her story that inspired me to be brave enough to share my own story as well. And that book, the books that you have written, Edie, the wisdom that you have shared, they inspire us to pursue our own freedom. That's how it felt for me. So I think that one of the most powerful keys to freedom in my own life has been seeing the example of other people who have released themselves from the prisons in their mind, as you describe it, Edie, and then using that as an example and a motivation of what is possible. And I feel so grateful that we have your story to learn from and your wisdom to receive, because it helps in so many ways, even beyond the initial message.
Stephanie, thank you. When you, was there something that you did? Was there a tool that you can share with us about how you overcame, or not overcame those fears, but how you came to terms with your fears and still went forward with writing your book?
I think I often reminded myself of, Edie, one of the things that you share about treating yourself like a precious diamond and loving yourself completely. And I asked myself, if I loved myself completely, what would I do in this moment? And the answer was to be brave and to share my story. And it is that sense of self-love that makes fulfilling your purpose possible in so many ways. The more that you love yourself, the more that change becomes easier. And I know that for me, I was raised believing that the best way to change was to be mean to myself and to be cruel to myself. And through your work, Edie, I have learned that it's the opposite. The more that we love ourselves, the easier it is to become all that we can be.
Wow. That is exactly what I've been believing. And as I work with Edie, as I read more deeply into what it is to be free, it is to reframe that voice in our head to be a loving voice rather than a punitive voice. And Edie, you talk about being the loving parent. And how do you become the loving parent to yourself rather than potentially the punitive one?
To talk to myself and then listening what is the answer to it all, that there'll never be another me. It's okay It's okay to go to school, and you don't have to have an A plus. You can make a C and even an F in something. I think it's important very much for you to be okay with yourself. And I remember when I was working in the Midwest, and we sat down, and I told the girl next to me, "You have such a lovely profile." And a mother kicked me under the table and said, "Don't tell her that. She'll be conceited."
Mm.
And I think it's very important to tell yourself that you are okay. There'll never be another you exactly the way you are. So I think it's very important for you to give yourself for everything that you do to make the world a better world.
Finding that kindness for yourself. Now, it's one thing to say that's what you should do, right? It's easy to say that. But the real question is, how do you do it? And what we're here to do throughout these 3 days is to give tools for what you can do to begin the process of adjusting that voice in your head to become the kind voice, the loving, supportive voice. Because if you have a coach, let's say, and that coach is on the sidelines screaming at you to do better, are you going to do better? No, you're going to do worse. That pressure, that anxiety, that fear of disappointing that coach is going to make you fail. And that coach is going to wonder, why is my team doing so badly? And that's the voice that you have in your head so often when we try new things, when we risk, when we actually think about risk. And to figure out how to make that voice in our head be the loving coach, the coach that takes you aside and gives you wisdom about how you learned from where you failed and how you can turn that into a victory next time, right? That's the coach that you want to see on CNN who leads that team over and over again to championship and isn't angry at his players when they fail. He supports them and he gives them all of the love that they need to become their best self. So why aren't we that coach to ourselves? Well, that's a big part of what we're going to talk about in these next few days. Why don't we do that to ourselves? Why do we self-sabotage, right? It's such a human thing. No other animal on the planet self-sabotages themselves, right? It's a very unique quality to men, to humans, that we would do that. And yet we do it. Humans have been doing it since the beginning of time. And so what we're going to look at is why we do that and how to change that voice into that loving voice that will support you and give you all the nourishment you need to become your best self. We've been working on Dr. Eager's methodology. And one of the things that we want to start talking about is the Eager method. Dr. Eager has been so massively influential in helping people to change their life and their thinking. And what it comes down to is a methodology that takes a handful of steps. And the coursework that we've done, as we've really discovered, walks people through that methodology. And the Eager method is one thing that we can start to rely on as we go through our own process as a step-by-step journey to becoming that kind, loving parent to ourselves. And actually, the hardest moment is to be that kind, loving parent to yourself when things go wrong. Right? It's pretty easy to do it when everything's going well. It can be really hard to be that kind voice in your head when things are falling apart. And I'm sure you can relate to that. I definitely can relate to that too. Let's keep moving through. I have some wonderful questions, and I want to just check in with everybody. How's everybody doing? Is this feeling like what you came for? Are you feeling that little freedom juju moving through your body? Can everybody give a little shake? A little Edie shake?
Mhm.
There it is. I love it. Edie, you have a piece of wisdom that I always think about, which is when you were in Auschwitz, you didn't fight your way through, you danced your way through.
Mhm.
Can you talk to me about how you kept freedom forefront in your mind when you were in Auschwitz?
I think talking to myself has really saved my life. And I would say to myself, I don't like it, it's inconvenient. And not but, change the but to, and it's temporary and I can survive it. And it's really the same now. The one day at a time does work. And that you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you say, I love me. It's not narcissistic at all. It's to be able to be a good mommy to you. And good mommies don't say yes, but a good mommy say yes. And furthermore, I am going to add another one to and see how I can really be the best survivors. And the children really don't do what we say, they do what we do.
Mhm.
And I think that's important for us to demonstrate to our children that we don't raise our voice, certainly not to each other. And you may say something like, ask permission. I like to tell you something very important. Is it okay now? Or tomorrow I like to make a date with you, 3 o'clock.
To find the right time to have
To
those
find the
conversations.
right time
Mhm.
is absolutely everything.
Right, because you can trigger a whole different conversation if you pick the wrong time to have it.
So,
And it's about,
like 10 o'clock at night when you want to go to sleep.
right. It's about finding the right moment, and it isn't when you're in the heat of emotion. It's typically not the right time. It's also not the right time to have that conversation with yourself. Sometimes you need to have the preparatory conversations when you're in a calm, relaxed state, so that when things aren't calm and relaxed, you have that tool within you. If you only wait for the challenging moment, it's likely to come off the hinges a little bit. Stephanie, in your life, in your story, how have you used choice? How have you used the power of choice to heal your past? Or it doesn't have to be about you in particular, but can you talk about how choice is a valuable tool for healing our past?
I think that choice is the essence of empowerment, right? To be able to be in a situation and to decide I can act one way or another way. I have some influence of control or of impact over what is happening in my life. And I think my understanding of your work, Edie, is that's the essence of being somebody who refuses to be a victim of one's circumstances, is having that power to choose. And I know in my book, I write about my partner going through a very serious illness for many, many years, and watching him continually make the choice to be brave, to continue to strive, to find well-being and peace, and to make choices that empowered him, even when it was incredibly difficult. That has inspired me to try to do the same in my own life, to ask, I might not have control over everything that's happening right now. I might have no control, but what can I do in this moment to help me feel a little bit better, to help me make a difference, to help me love myself even when it's hard, to your point, Jordan. I always have a choice, and that's one of the lessons I think that is so powerful with the eager method, is helping us to see that there is always that potential to choose differently, and that's where our power comes from.
Mm. Yeah, the power is in our choices. That's the thing we can control, right? How we react and what is the choice we make. And I think, Edie, one of the real nuggets that I get from you is the choice to look at what happened to you in your past as a gift or as a debilitation. And when we make the choice, when we're willing to make the choice, Edie, you love that word willing, and it's such a powerful word, right?
Yeah. You have to be willing um, to live life as fully as you can. But change is really synonymous with growth. If you come in the front door, you can try the side window, or even anything. But if you do the same thing over and over again, you're revolving, not evolving.
Mhm.
So I think it's very important to do things differently, not better or worse, just differently. If you've been going in the front door, you may try the side window.
And
Whatever.
please make a video of it when you do, because that will be a special moment when you go in the side window. Edie does it every now and then. But I think what you're saying, Edie, is to be willing to do something different.
Yes, that's why, I'm not a shrink, I'm a stretch. And today you are adding something to your repertoire, and to be able to really practice what you choose, that you do things better and bigger and more often, that you can be a good role model to the young. And so when my supervisor told me to be able to change and do this and that, and I said, well, if I do that, I may be 50 by the time they have done it. And he said, you'll be 50 anyway. And I think that was very wise. I'm telling you, you'll be 50 anyway. And the chronological age is there, and hopefully that you will be a good mama to you.
And I think today, while we have those of you who are joining us for the workshop, and we're going to finish the first part of this day's work, I really want to bring about the first part of freedom comes from willingness. You have to be willing. If you're not willing to go through that door to discover how your past can free you in your present, it will be very hard to get there. So the question I ask you as you're contemplating your own life at this moment is, are you willing? What comes up for you when I ask you that? Are you willing? Because just like Alcoholics Anonymous and all these other great programs don't have a chance of changing your life if you're not willing to change. And the group of humans that continue transformation are ones who are willing, they are coachable, they are ready. Now, are those words that define you, or are those words that feel far off? And potentially, if they aren't there for you, if you feel like when I ask you this, are you willing to discover freedom? Are you willing to go back to your past and reframe it? If there feels a voice in your head that says, no, I'm not willing. I'm willing. I don't need that. Where do you think that comes from?
The word that comes up for me is trigger. What triggers what? And I remember when I was at the Ruth Steakhouse, it triggered in me the part in me when I was walking from Auschwitz all the way down to Mauthausen, Austria. I think it triggered to me the children who were spitting at us and calling us dirty dogs. I wanted to let the children know that they were not born with hate. They learned it. And today, a German family comes to my military hospital. The little girl jumps in my lap and calls me Oma. And so this is, I say that change is synonymous with growth.
Yeah. You don't grow if you don't change. And, that's as true for a 4-year-old as it is for a 50-year-old. You have to keep changing if you want to grow. And the other thing is change can be painful. Change is not always easy. Change is not always a party. Change is sometimes work. And if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to change and you're willing to go through that door, what is possible? And for those of you who have begun that journey and you're taking on challenges that you didn't think you could, if you're like Edie and you wrote your book in your 90s, if you asked Edie at 85 if she was going to write a book in her 90s, she might have said no. But it happened because she had this dream that she wouldn't let go of. And look what it's done for you in your life. I want to talk with you more about what happened for you when you wrote your book. And we'll get into that in the next part that is for the extended edition people. Now, the last thing before we move over to that is, did everybody get your workbook, the sheet, the Journey to Freedom, Discovering Freedom for Me the sheet? So that is something that I'm hoping you all can fill out. We're going to give you a different sheet each day. And before we finish with the general group, I wanted to highlight the first question, which is, what does freedom mean to you? And that is such an important question because freedom itself is a general term, but what it means to you is very specific. So if you have time today, really think deeply about what freedom looks like to you. What does freedom enable you to do? And be very specific. You don't have a lot of space here on the sheet, so if you need to go on to another sheet, of course, feel free to do so. But really dial down what freedom is, because then in these next 3 days, we can start getting there. We can start working towards what it takes for you to get to your version of freedom. Not my version of freedom, not Edie's version of freedom, but what is your version of freedom? And if somebody has that version of freedom, that vision of what you can achieve, you're much more likely to achieve it. So
the other F word is freedom from the prison that is in your own mind, and the key is in your pocket.
All right.
Only you can do that, and you can do it very well. And first you go backwards, and then you're going to move forward. Because when I came to America, I was on a ship for people who didn't have any money, and we even had to get $6 from the Red Cross when we arrived in New York. And so I think it's important for you to see where you are now and what would be more realistic rather than idealistic.
So, Edie, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom today. For all of you who joined us, who are not part of the extended edition, thank you for being a part of this first day. And if you do want to join us for the next hour, Edie, of course, is going to be with me, and Stephanie. You can still jump in and join us. There'll be a link on the page for you to jump in and join for the next 3 days, an extra 3 hours. It's going to be very, very beautiful work, and I think it's the way to experience this journey to freedom. But if you're here with us just for the part that we have today and tomorrow and Friday, we are grateful for you to be here. Please take your time to do that worksheet. That homework is key for us to make those breakthroughs. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for all of you who are here on Zoom, stay with us, and we will be right back in one moment. Yes, all of you just stay where you are. Don't go anywhere.